Hello and welcome back to another edition of Mr. Opinion Head here on the Low Def Media Podcast channel. I'd like to welcome you to the Sunday edition. These episodes come out kind of sporadically, just because it's all a matter of finding the time and squeezing in what you can when you can. We are going to be uploading onto Anchor and onto Buzzsprout, and those platforms will get this out to Spotify, to Apple Music, Google, and I believe there's one more that I'm missing. Google, I think Google Play. So Spotify, Apple, Google, and I want to say there's one more. But anyway, hopefully you can find this where you find your podcasts. And I do thank you for taking the time to join the channel. We are also going to put a video edition out on YouTube. So if you consume your content that way, you'll also have a video version. All right, so what are we going to talk about today? Well, it's kind of hard not to have a discussion about the war in Ukraine. And in my last podcast, it was either my last one or one of the last couple podcasts, we talked about what $7 a $7 gallon of gasoline would look like and how that would impact the economy. And so I'm going to go along that same theme. And today we want to talk about some of the impacts that we are feeling and experiencing here in the United States based on the war in the Ukraine. Two very distinct things come to mind. First of all, it's got to be the gasoline. I read an article today where they were trying to answer the question why gas is starting to climb. The cost of gas is climbing here in America when we only get a very small percentage, 10 to 15% of our petroleum from Russia. And the reason being is supply and demand. Even though we're not one of the larger consumers of their oil, Europe is. And if Europe isn't going to do business with Russia, they have to get their oil from somewhere. So then the demand then switches over to OPEC, where we do get a majority of our oil from. And so that raises the cost because supply and demand. They have the supply, we now have the demand, and that correlation means prices have to go up because there's just not as much oil now as there was before the war in the Ukraine. So we talked about that last week and about what our economy would look like with $7 gallon of gasoline. Right now, here in where I live in Georgia, it's about $4.29 across the board. You'll see minor fluctuations here and there, but for by and large, $4.29. By the way, I'm sporting my new earbuds, monitoring earbuds. If you want to know more about these, go see my YouTube channel, Low Def Media, and I do a little review on these. Great for podcasts. Can't say enough about them. All right, so we talked about the gas. Now what I want to talk about is grain and corn, because I heard a very interesting article, or read an article that talked about how much the Ukraine and Russia produces in the way of corn and grain. They're combined to be one of the world's largest suppliers of those commodities. And so how does that impact us? Well, what I heard or read, I can't remember which platform I came across this information, but what the gist of the article was that the supply of food won't go away. There will be plenty of food, but because of the demand, the price will go up, just like gasoline's doing, and it'll get to the point where the prices will exclude certain people. It will price them out because I got to adjust my camera. Because what's going to happen is you're going to get a loaf of bread that now costs $7. And, traditionally, loaf of bread, you can get that for, depending on the brand, sometimes under $2, but usually not more than $3 for a majority of the loaves of bread. But if you jack that price up to $7, then that a lot of people won't be able to afford that. And so what the article was saying is the supply of food will be there, but it'll be so cost prohibitive that people won't be able to afford it. And so the title of the article included the phrase biblical event, biblical proportions, something like that. So what they're saying is it's going to be that kind of catastrophic event that it's going to impact not just the United States, not just Europe, but it's a worldwide kind of effect. And to correlate that, I was watching the news, and I was watching it was Instagram, and a guy posted a video of him getting gas. He's a tractor trailer driver, and he showed the pump, and it cost him over $1,000 to fill his tank. Now, I don't have to tell you, you already know that if the truck driver is experiencing that kind of cost, he's passing that cost on to the supplier. And the supplier then has to charge, or the distributor, then the supplier, whatever the terms are. But the person who created the product has to pass on that cost to the person selling the product. Let's say it's a grocery store. So now anything that truck driver is carrying goes up. And so now, we're going to start feeling the impact of this war in Ukraine here in America. So again, my question is, what are we going to do? How is that going to affect our economy? We're already in a recession. So how bad can we expect it to get? Where's it going to go? And then conversely, what can we do to maybe positively affect it? Somebody said that because of the gasoline prices, people are going to be clamoring to get electric cars. There's going to be a big push to get, let's say, Teslas or any other hybrid car, electric car. I don't know if that's the best answer, and I say that for two reasons. First, I look at California. This past summer, there was a heat wave, and the state government came out and told people not to charge their cars during the day because it put a burden on the grid, and they needed that power for air conditioning. And so if that's the case, if you're going to be, if you have an electric car and your ability to charge it can be impacted based on current conditions in your county, state, city, whatever, that to me, I mean, it's one thing. First of all, that's not a good place to be. At least with high gas prices, you can still get gas. But when they tell you you can't charge your car, that's bad. How do you get to work? How do you do anything if you've put all your eggs in that basket? Now, my other thought is why, when it comes to electric cars, why are people so passionate about electric cars and how they're supposed to be saving the environment? I know, they don't have a combustion engine, so all of the crap that comes with a combustion engine, what do they call it? The burn off and all that stuff, the exhaust and all that stuff that goes into the atmosphere. Yes, none of that because it's electric. However, where does the electricity come from? You back it up. It comes from a plant. And majority of the plants in America use natural gas or coal to create their electricity. Those are non-renewable resources. And if you look at what a plant does, it's churning out smoke left and right because it's got to burn up that coal and to convert it to electricity. Now, if it's a hydro plant, that's a little different. It's using the power of water to generate a turbine and you create electricity that way. That's fine. A wind turbine, solar. For the life of me, I don't know why every house in America isn't made with solar panels. It's free energy. That should just be something that's across the board. Now, I know big electric companies across the country would say, no, we don't want that because then they're no longer as dependent on us, which is the same reason why we don't have, or we didn't get electric cars sooner, like a mass acceptance of electric cars because the big three automakers have contracts with big oil. And the less oil you're burning, the less money they make. And so, they don't make money on the electricity unless, and I don't have an electric car, so I can't confirm this, but I'm assuming that when you put, let's say, a Tesla charging station in your house, Tesla's going to make some money. And then when you use it, they're probably going to make some money. And when you go out and about and you use a Tesla charging station, they just built one. I can't remember where I saw it, but I just saw a new charging station in my comings and goings. And I know that when you buy the car, you get a certain amount of electricity as part of your purchase. It's kind of like an allotment every month. But then once that runs out, you've got to pay. You've got to pay for that electricity. So again, those companies are going to make money. And that kind of answers the question I've always had. Why don't they have universal chargers? Why doesn't a Tesla and a GM and a Porsche and what's another one, a Hyundai, why don't they all have the same connector so they can all use the same charging port so that when I'm driving around, if I need electricity, I can get it? The problem is who's getting the money for using that device, who puts it, who builds it, who installs it, who then gets the benefits from it. So I understand all that stuff, but it doesn't make it sound any better to me as to why we don't have a universal system. It's the same thing with cell phones. Why don't they all have the same kind of connector so that all of our cords work across the board? Why do they have to be different just to make things frustrating for the consumer? So what can we do? What can we do to kind of reduce the impact? Now, there are those that would say, hey, let's drive 55 miles an hour. When you get on the interstate, driving 75 really reduces your mile per gallon average. So if you drive 55, then you're going to be able to drive farther on a tank of gas. What are the odds you're going to convince Americans to do that? Now, the last time, and I mentioned this on our last podcast, the last time we really had a gas crisis, people started shedding their trucks and SUVs. I can see that happening again. People are going to gravitate towards the hybrids, the electric cars, and the really small gas efficient cars, fuel efficient. I can see that. It'll be for the time being until everything gets back to normal. That's what people will do. But what else? What about our eating habits? I mean, look how much food we throw away. Is there a possibility that we could be better about managing how much we eat, how much we cook, and maybe being a little more strategic with what we cook and how we cook it so that we're not, having to waste so much? I have a bigger question. Why, if we want to be recognized as the premier superpower in the world, America's been kind of, we've been referred to like that as the superpower, right? Everybody wants to come to America, hopes and dreams. You can do whatever in America. Sky's the limit. You can be whatever you want to be. So if that's how we want to be recognized, then why do we find ourselves being so dependent on other countries for food, for resources, for fuel, when those are things that we can produce on our own? We actually pay farmers not to farm because we have such a surplus. So I don't understand the economics behind it, but that would be my question for you, my listening audience. Explain to me. Tell me why we got. I probably know how we got where we are, because like anything else, it's probably just cheaper to buy it from another country and to sell ours to other countries, and you just make more money. We can sell it for more than we buy it. And so as a GDP, we make more money, but still, that puts you in a precarious spot because if anything goes sideways with those other countries, even though you view them as allies, anything goes sideways, and now all of a sudden, you don't have the resources that you need. And so that is not a good place to be. So I will leave you with that thought today. We're at the 15-minute mark, and I like to keep my shows brief. So as you can tell today, using the Blue Yeti microphone, using GarageBand, and recording today's video using my time-tested Canon T7i. It's an oldie, but it's a goodie. And hey, thanks so much for taking the time to listen to the Mr. Opinion Head podcast here on the Low Def Media Podcast channel. I hope you have a wonderful afternoon, and do leave a comment. Give me a thumbs up if you like the content, and become a subscriber if there's the kind of content that you would like to see more often. So until we meet again, you have a great one. Be safe. Take care.